on this. Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, and welcome to the Blurring the Lines podcast, episode number 180. And I am your host, Adam Bell, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Peter Nikolaidis. How you doing, Peter?
I am doing well. How about yourself?
I am also doing well. It's a nice fall day here, and got football tomorrow, and we're all gonna meet. The girls are coming in for the football game, so we'll have a good time.
I thought you were going to say we're all going to meet girls. I was like, wait, dude, you're married.
Yeah, I'm gonna meet 3 girls at a football game.
And why wasn't I invited? Oh man.
Yeah. Well, one of them's my wife, and the other 2 are under the age of 21. Well,
that's a good
21
reason.
Younger. Yeah.
That's still a good reason.
And it would be weird for you to be my brother-in-law. I mean, really.
And stranger things have happened.
Wait, not brother-in-law, son-in-law.
Right.
Right.
Because it'd be weirder for me to be your brother-in-law, because then I'd have to your wife would have to be a Mormon.
Well, no, you'd have to marry my wife's
be a
sister.
Husband and sister. Yeah, I'm lost. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on.
Peter, my new son-in-law.
I don't even know who I'd have to marry to make this happen.
Brother. Well, so today feels like it's going to be a tech episode.
Yeah, because it's National Chocolate Day, right?
Of course. That's what you do on National Chocolate Day.
You talk tech.
You talk tech.
Yep.
If you're 2 IT guys on Chocolate Day.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, why don't you kick us off then? Because I don't want to bulldozer the agenda on this one.
Well, yeah. So I've got some technical stuff to go. Oh, you pasted in a picture. I was like, what? I was like, I clicked a link and a picture showed up. I'm like, what happened here?
This is we're talking tech.
Talking tech. A magic happened.
The joys of a shared document in real-time editing while recording.
So we'll talk about fun things. Generally speaking, I like change. But when it comes to changing my phone, I don't like changing them as much, because I've become very efficient over the last 2 years of dealing with my phone and exactly where it is and what I want. But all that aside, the iPhone transition from what it used to be to what it is now, put them side by side, they sync up, and it's like 90% done at that point. You've got a couple applications that don't work so well, but overall, so I've got the new iPhone 14 Pro. Apple has suckered me in. If it's got Pro behind it, that's what I'm going to get. Plus, you can see the camera. You can see that this camera is big, but when you compare it to, my 12, the camera size is it's foggy. It's much bigger. It's probably a quarter size bigger all the way around, the new camera system. And it sticks out a lot further than the old one. I know that that's better for photography, but it also makes for a bigger case, thicker case, and it's also a bit heavier. The whole thing's a bit heavier.
Remind me, did you have the Pro version of both, or the Pro Max version?
Pro. I had both. So I don't do the Max. Max is an iPad mini on my hip, and I mean the regular size is big enough all by itself.
Yep.
So the camera's okay. I haven't seen really excellent camera things about it yet, but I haven't got to fully test it. One thing I did notice is it does have a really cool feature. I was looking at a picture of my family, and I clicked on it. I held the click on it, and I held it. It was on us. And because I was looking at it was a 10 burst, and I was looking to how do I get to the 10 burst to choose which picture I wanted to choose. And so I was holding down to see if it give me options. But what it did is it highlighted and outlined my family and made it an editable object at that point. So I could have pulled just us out of the picture. So it's got some really cool editing, but I think that's the new iOS, not the new iPhone, right?
I was just wondering, I'm trying to remember if that is the phone or if that's the software. How did you just looking in photos, did you just press and hold on a photo? Yep.
Yeah.
That is the software, because I can do that
You
now.
can do that too. So
I
that was a cool feature that I found out on accident. But
Yep.
it is really cool because it was very intelligent as far as the pixels that it chose, and I could easily have just put you right in that picture with us, or taken us out, and we're running in your marathon with you. I've
And
got
the next thing you
photographic
know,
proof.
I'm your son-in-law. And
Yeah.
so like I could take a picture of my beat up toenail from my marathon and cut it out of whatever it is and paste it into a shared document or something.
Yeah, there you go. Let me see here. Oh my. What's funny is it looks like it's like a doctor's picture because it's
That's
cut out and everything.
exactly, which is actually pretty funny, because I'm going to have to send this to my doctor, because I need to know, like, I don't, it is not getting any better. So, anyway, back to you. Don't let me railroad this. I was the
Anyway.
first picture I opened and I was like, can I cut this? Oh, I can cut this out. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So then where'd my link? Where'd they all go? Oh, here we go. Okay. So the camera size is big. So the new phone features the SOS feature for
Yes.
now. What I'm not sure about is, so my farm is out of cellular service. I thought that I could or I thought it would let me make phone calls in the satellite. It does not appear that you can use it as like a backup phone service when you are out of service. It's for
No.
emergency calling only.
Yes.
Uh, but I didn't want to dial. Well, I didn't want to dial
911.
911 to make sure it worked, because if I ever did that, I mean, and if anybody ever does do that, you never hang up. You go ahead and
Right.
make the call. You let it ring. The person calls and said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to dial 911. I wanted to make sure that you knew that this was not an emergency and you can close this ticket, close this incident, whatever you got to do. Let
Yep.
me know when I can hang up.
Yep. Yes. Is it safe for me to hang up yet? Yep.
Is it?
I know that.
Uh-huh. So, so it does show SOS at the top when it's out. But what I also read when I got my phone is it said that the service would be available in the fall of 2022. Well, this is the fall of 2022, so I don't know if it's active or not. But like I said, I didn't feel up to calling 911 and making sure that it worked and even see what address I had, if it could even find me, if it was an emergency. So I didn't get to try that, but it is there. The battery charging, I had one little thing, and I don't know if it was just a one-off thing or not. So I took I charged it overnight on my extra cord downstairs on my desk, because I wanted a full charge when I did the migration.
Yep.
And so I let it charge overnight. I got up yesterday morning, I did my migration, and then I left to go down to the farm. Well, when I plugged in my charging cable, it came on, the little charging indicator came on, and then it went off. And I know that they're trying to do intelligent battery charging to give the battery the best chance of a long life.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, I'm not going to sweat it. The cord's plugged in tight. The adapter's plugged in tight. It's not charging. This is the first day out of the box. It may be learning. I mean, so I'm like, okay, let it learn. And
Yep.
I got on the phone and drove to the farm and had my Waze on and I was making a phone call the whole time. And the battery life keeps going down and down and down and down and not charging. And I was like, well, I'm driving. I can't troubleshoot this. I can't go into battery settings and see what's going on. So I got it. I got to my destination. I shut down everything because I'm like, well, I've got to at least keep 50% battery in case I've got to drive back and I want service on the way back. So I stopped doing what I was doing, got off my phone call, got off my Waze app. I don't need Waze just in case. I only keep it in case there's an accident,
Yeah.
so it'll direct me around.
Yep.
It got there, and went about my day. And when I went home, I put it on the charger. It immediately started charging and went up to 100%. So I don't know if it's a problem or if it was doing its cycle on learning. Every time I plug it up now, it starts charging. So
you mentioned that, and it's kind of funny because the exact or something similar happened when I got my new MacBook. I
yeah.
noticed that it was charging up only to 80% when I would be sitting at my, kitchen breakfast bar.
Mm-hmm.
And so one time I had to leave later that day, and I was like, no, I need you at 100%, charge all the
Mm-hmm.
way. And I went into the power settings somehow and turned that off or on or something. And it has always charged to 100% ever since.
That's interesting because my MacBook Pro was doing the exact same thing. It would stay around 78%. And it had a notification that said not charging to 100% because you don't take this thing out. You don't remove it. It doesn't operate off of battery very often. So we're not charging it.
So what I don't understand though is I don't know where optimized battery. Oh yeah, optimized battery charging. Yeah. So I just found the setting in settings under Mac OS,
Mm-hmm.
and optimized battery charging is enabled,
Mm-hmm.
but it has always gone to 100% ever since that first day when I said don't do that.
Yeah.
So I
Huh.
don't get it. I don't understand. I guess it has decided that to be optimal, it needs to be 100% for me.
Reduce charging. Yeah. It'll wait to finish. Yeah, that's what, but mine is on that too, but mine is now at 100% and I didn't do anything. But mine's
It was
been,
learning.
yeah. It hurt us and then it made an adjustment.
Your phone is listening to you.
Yeah. And then so speaking of location, one of the things that I read on the iPhone 14, which I didn't read before, was that Find My Phone, your phone can now be found if it has been powered off and wiped and reloaded. You can still find the location.
At once it's like reconnected or something.
Yeah, it would have to be. I mean, it'd have to be having some sort of network connection.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
if you've
But
got the SOS stuff, it can be found through the satellite, so it would always have a connection.
as long as it's powered on, yeah.
Yeah, as long as
Yep.
it's powered on. So if you lost it, and somebody's like, "Well, I'm just gonna reset this thing to factory defaults and
Yep.
go," but once you've registered it in your Apple account, it's now
Yeah, I think
found.
that's been like that for some time though, because even if you wiped it out, that was the whole point. Is like the hardware, the Mac address or the IMEI or whatever doesn't change. So I'm pretty sure that's been like that for some time. Even if
Okay.
you wiped it, they could find it once you got connectivity back to the Apple Cloud. That is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I guess now with that satellite antenna, you can get it even more so. So that was
Mhm.
interesting.
We can find you. We have our ways.
One of the things that didn't transfer and everything, I mean, I expected things like Signal to require a reauthentication, and it
Yep.
did. WhatsApp, I mean, that did. Anything that was associated with the cell phone number, it changed. And I
Yep.
didn't have to change my SIM either.
You got the eSIM, right?
Yeah. And I don't know what that means. Is that a physical SIM or is it not? It's okay. Electronic.
Yep.
Yeah, because I liked being able to take the SIM out, put it physically in another one, and it just goes.
Yep.
But it detected, when I said I wanted to migrate from old phone to new phone, it said, "Do you want this to be the new phone number? The old one will stop." I'm like, yeah. And it went through and no problems. The only problem that I did have with an application was my Microsoft Authenticator app. It
Yep.
brought in one entry, but it left three others that said additional authentication is required. And it's like, okay, what's the additional authentication? You must scan the QR code. Oh, you mean I need to reset you up from scratch is what you mean. Because they, I was like, well,
Exactly.
either tell me you're not going to migrate me, or, I was like, well, that's kind of useless. So I have to go reset those back up. But fortunately, I have my old phone, so I can log into my account and then reset up MFA.
Yep. So yeah,
So,
and that's typical Microsoft fashion. Like, like, how are you going to like repair this? Well, just wipe the operating system and reinstall everything from scratch.
well,
But they used to do that too. Like in Internet Explorer, when they introduced the feature to resume an interrupted download,
mm-hmm.
it just restarted the download. That was great. Thanks, guys.
But I didn't really understand what was the point of it, because I could back it up to my iCloud account and then I could restore it from my iCloud account, but it still didn't restore the authentication parts of it. So like, okay.
I don't know. So back to something else you talked about, the whole touching and selecting an object and
Mm-hmm.
cutting it out of the photo. Like, essentially the Photoshop lasso, magic lasso
Mm-hmm.
tool, right? I'm having mixed results with that. It will, like, anytime I try to copy a person, it either does nothing when I press and hold it, or it highlights it and then I click the copy button and nothing happens. It doesn't actually copy. It's bizarre. But I did it
Wonder.
with like plates of food and my toe. That worked fine.
That's funny.
It is funny. I don't understand. Not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, I'll have to dig into that one a little bit deeper. The dynamic island.
That I don't remember what that. I remember hearing about it. I don't even remember what that
That's
is.
the little black space at the top.
Oh, that's on your phone though, right? You have that. I
Yeah,
don't have that. Yeah.
yeah. It has been interesting because it adds some information up there that you'll lose otherwise. Because like when Waze, if you've got Waze on and you've turned Waze off, it used to be like a little blue diagonal up at the top. Now it's in the dynamic island, so you can find it.
Okay.
Doing some interesting things with that. One thing
I
they've added,
remember, yeah, I remember hearing about that on the demo, but I wasn't really paying a lot of attention, so I didn't really, that didn't sink in.
yeah. The one thing that I don't really care about that is in there at the bottom, there's a search button now, a little tiny search button that'll sit outside the icons and everything. Like, I don't need the search button because I drag from the top down, or hold and drag down, and that's search. I mean, so I don't.
That might be hard for some ordinary users to find.
Yeah, yeah. I know some users that I can't convince them. Just drag from the right corner in for your camera.
Yep.
I got to find the camera app. I don't even know where the camera app is. I
Yeah,
don't need
just
it.
drag down, it's right there.
Yeah.
So what would you say out of all these new features, what's your favorite iOS feature update?
Uh, um, I wouldn't say that any of them are. I guess the SOS is probably my favorite thing.
Yep. Even though you haven't had to use it.
Even though I haven't had to use it, I like the idea, because one of the things that I was concerned about at the farm is if I fell off the roof, I couldn't call anybody. Man, I couldn't dial 911.
Yep. You know what? You know what also has that though? Your Apple Watch has that. But like, oh, but you have no cell service. That's right. That's
Yeah,
right. That's
yeah,
right.
no cell
Okay.
service.
Stand
So
corrected. Yep.
so
Yep.
that's good. Well, and I don't know why this didn't dawn on me before. But I had satellite internet there before, just do wireless calling, and my
Yep.
wireless internet there will go.
Yep.
But if I'm in the woods or if I'm not
Exactly.
near the house, that I think that's my favorite thing.
Yep.
Um,
That's cool.
yeah, and it is fast. It does,
Yep.
it's got a nice. I mean, it's very responsive. Every
Yep.
time we get a new iPhone, I think it's more responsive than the last one. And I'm like, oh, I thought I had it. It was really good before.
Well,
This is even better.
every time you get a new iPhone, it's the best, fastest iPhone we've ever made. We're like, well, of course it is, idiots. You didn't slow
Yeah.
the thing down. So
Yeah,
yeah.
we wouldn't buy it.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
My only complaint is that it's a little bit bigger.
Yep.
A little bit bigger, a little bit heavier. Um, But
now if I was to go to the 14 Pro, it'd be a little bit smaller because I have the 12 Pro Max.
there you go.
So there you
Mm-hmm.
go. Yep. All
But
right, cool.
you'd probably feel like you'd lost real estate though. Like,
Yeah,
I moved into a
probably.
smaller house.
I think at this point I probably would be okay with a slightly smaller phone. Like I'm noticing more the size of the phone when I have it in a pocket or when I run with it in my flip belt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking more and more I could deal with a smaller phone and be okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's rough. Do I want a mini? Well, not anymore, right? Because they don't make those anymore. They just did those on the 13 and then they gave up on that. So I guess I don't want. And my iPhone mini, that's my watch. That's my
Yeah.
Apple Watch. So I have the biggest watch and I have the biggest phone right now, but
Uh-huh.
also the smallest MacBook and the smallest iPad.
There
So
you
it's an interesting contradiction there. So
go. It's some weird Freudian thing.
yep. It's the biggest and the smallest.
All right. Well, cool. Yeah. So overall, I do think the battery life is pretty good.
Yep. And they do tend to get better, So
Mm-hmm.
knock on wood, I have not noticed any performance degradation in my either my new MacBook M2 or in my iPhone 12 Pro Max since updating to the latest iOS and watchOS, or on my iPad Retina, either
Mm-hmm.
one.
Cool.
So Retina Mini, iPad Mini, whatever. Yeah. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so kudos to Apple for not breaking everything and making my operating systems drag after an upgrade. So I'm very happy about that.
Good.
Yep.
All right. So next, I want to talk. We're going to talk tech today.
Thought we
So,
had been talking tech.
oh yeah, we have been talking tech. Uh, Consumer tech. Now we're going to talk business consumer tech, I guess. So we talked about we want to talk about XDRs and EDRs and
Mm-hmm.
not DVRs or NVRs, or there's a lot of acronyms there. But I have, and we talked about it a little bit. So I have Deep Instinct as my antivirus provider.
Okay.
And it was my understanding that they did learning, of behavioral learning and patterns and looking for new patterns. And then my SOC told me, well, we need to install this extra EDR with it. I'm like, well, I thought that's what Deep Instinct was. Well, it is, but we want to install this other one because it's going to give us more insight and more abilities to protect you from viruses. And that, of course, I just said, okay, because I need you to protect my computers. And then then it becomes a hard thing for me to explain to my customers, like, okay, we have an EDR. We installed an EDR, but I thought we had an EDR. We did. This is better. And then I was like, I need to ask Peter, the security expert, what's an EDR?
so again, different vendors will call it different things, or call the same thing different things, or different things the same thing, depending on the day. EDRs, it's short for Endpoint Detection and Response. It's going to generally be an agent that runs on your Windows or Linux or Macintosh machine.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's going to do is, in addition to either traditional signature-based or next generation behavior-based antivirus or malware protection, in addition to being able to block a malicious process that might spawn like from a bad download or a virus or something, my do not disturb mode is not working. I am being disturbed. I am disturbed.
I am
Sorry.
disturbed.
I was going to talk about the new features that I liked, and one of them is the focus-based do not disturb settings, which apparently I need to tweak because I am being disturbed, even though I'm in a focus setting. Anyway, what most EDRs will do is, in addition to or supplementing, like blocking malicious processes, they also will track the behavior that led up to its execution.
Mm-hmm.
And they also will usually offer network containment of the device.
Mm-hmm.
So you can, for example, if you'd see that some sort of ransomware ran on this system.
Mm-hmm.
You might notice that what led to that was a copy of Adobe Acrobat.
Mm-hmm.
And well, what led to that? Well, it was a copy of Google Chrome going to this website. Well, what led to that? That was a copy of Microsoft Outlook. And then you can see that this user received an email, clicked a link, opened the browser, downloaded the malicious PDF, which then spawned JavaScript that kicked off a bad, like ransomware, for
Mm-hmm.
instance. And that process of doing that manually without an EDR tool can take hours.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I saw this now, it's hard to believe, it was 6 years ago. It was in 2016. I was at the Sophos Partner Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember seeing this just after I had gotten my SANS Certified Incident Handler certification. And I
Mm-hmm.
had just learned how to do all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And like part of the labs, you had to do this. It took a few hours to break this apart and make sure you could track what process actually spawned this malicious document. And Sophos Intercept X was able to backtrack this and show it in a matter of like 8 seconds.
Awesome.
And I was like, well, that was a great $5,000 and, 6 weeks of my life spent studying for this exam down the drain. Wonderful. Thank you.
I've been replaced with a software platform.
Yep.
So
I've been I've been replaced by a small shell script. So.
well, and of course I'm not as interested in the security side of things like you are, of actually doing it. I'm very interested in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm very interested in, how my truck works, or that my truck is working. I'm not necessarily interested in how it works, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that I could backtrack that like you described the manual
Mm-hmm.
way. I
Yeah.
don't think I could. I mean, and I don't even know
It's
that
it's
by
work.
default. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
That
it is work for sure.
hmm But I don't even know that the logging is appropriate and would give
That's
me the information that I need.
And that's the other thing. By default, Windows doesn't track a lot of this stuff. A lot of it you can find, right? But it involves digging through artifacts and having like running processes.
Hmm.
And so if these processes have been all killed and you didn't get to the machine on time and it was shut down, your
Hmm.
history is all gone.
Yeah.
Right. And then it's a matter of, catching memory dumps if you have them for some reson, which why would you? So it becomes a real chore if it's even possible.
Hmm.
And this is like, this kind of analysis usually requires taking a snapshot of memory so that you can go back and see what's in the process tree and backtrack it. It is not easy. This is not a pointy clicky, like, oh, okay, here's ransomware.exe. What spawned that? Oh, it was Adobe Acrobat Reader.exe. Okay, what spawned that? It's like, this is PID 11526. And now we got to find the parent of that, which is 2299. Okay, fine. And now I've got to backtrack and find, okay, 2299. Where did that? Oh, it's not here. I got to look over in this table and find, it's a
Hmm.
lot of bookmarking and getting back to and connecting strings to thumbtacks on the walls of photos of the killer at this location. It's
Yeah.
a lot of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of that kind of stuff.
And then, so one of the things that I asked about this from my SOC is like, I still don't have a SEIM, and I would, I still want to be able to sell that, because I mean, I don't want, it's not so much about selling it as much as some of my regulatory clients need it,
Yep.
and as part of their requirements. And it's in most cases, well, like my banks, it's not required, but it's strongly recommended, and they would really
Mm-hmm.
like that running against their core system, against the network, for all the reasons you described as malware, being able to trace that back. Because if it's a bank, it's more likely theft malware. We want to find out who stole it and how.
That's who's going to be targeting them anyway.
Yeah. And so I asked my SOC, they were like, well, you do have a SEIM. I'm like, do I really? I've got an EDR.
Mm-hmm.
So based on the definition of long-term logging, how much time do I have in the log? 30 days. Like, is that really extended logging in your definition? Because in my definitions, that's not long-term logging. That's the technically you have a SEIM, but not
Yeah.
really
But
implement.
what else though? I mean, event management, a SIM implies that you're aggregating multiple sources of incident and event logs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're just gathering, aggregate, I suppose technically, sure, but the question is, what is the requirement, right? Is the requirement you have a SIM, or is the requirement you have the functionality that is often associated with having a SIM? Because
Yeah.
frankly, I would take a robust EDR tool over having a SIM any day,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I know that it's going to have all the stuff that I need, as well as response capabilities in addition to just logging capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it really depends, again, so that's a question for like the regulators. Like if they're saying thou shalt have a SIM, that's different from thou shalt be able to retrace your logs and account for, like what led to an incident or stop one from occurring.
Yeah. Well, and of course, the regulators aren't always as informed about everything. They catch a term and
Not
grab
even
onto it.
close.
But so, in at least in our regulatory audit that we did this year, they wanted to know, was logging occurring, and is there a seam? And
Okay.
yeah, and and I responded truthfully that there is logging. There
Yep.
is not a seam. I mean,
Yep.
and you could say that there's a seam. I know that you can, if we want to get litigious about it, you could say that there's a seam, but I do not, if we're going to be with the heart of the rule, I don't have my firewalls, my switches, my servers, my workstations, my
Yep.
printers, all reporting everything that they possibly know to a centralized location.
And in my experience, you often don't need it because, generally what happens, the bad stuff generally ends up happening on an endpoint. They
Hmm.
may have gotten through the firewall and that's how they got to it, but like
Yeah. They probably reverse
it
proxied to that endpoint to your
very well could have,
to
So
your
where are
thing.
you going to find the logs on it? Again, it comes down to that endpoint.
Hmm. So yeah, kind of, yeah, we've got a seam-ish.
Ish. A seamish.
A seam-ish.
I like that. Kind of seam-ish.
Yeah. I just don't like, when somebody asks me point blank, do you have this? And I want to
Yeah.
say, if I really have it, I want to say, yes, I do,
Yep.
or no. And so, I mean, how I handle it from a marketing standpoint, as I say, you get seam light by default. If you want a full blown seam, we can get that for you. It's an
Yep.
additional cost. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's totally reasonable. And you might, if you have a reasonable auditor, you can have a discussion with them and say, okay, well, what's the intent? Why are you asking this question?
Hmm.
Like, because if I can do everything that you would want a sim to give me, why do you care whether I have one or not? If it technically
Yeah.
meets it's like they say, like, AeroPress. I think AeroPress that's my favorite way to make coffee. It makes a great cup of coffee. And people say, like, yeah, but it's not espresso. And I'll say, yeah, but I don't care. It makes a great cup of coffee. It's like, oh, like, what's the intent here? So
I want a good cup of coffee. I don't care what you call
bingo. There you go.
it.
What
All
else you
right.
got? Talk to
Well,
me.
and
Tech,
then
talking tech.
talking tech. So I had, so I subscribe to Galactic Advisors, Bruce McCulley's new firm, and
You're gonna say Bruce Banner and the
Bruce Banner.
Avengers.
So I kind of
Oh,
think that the name's a little goofy, but hey, whatever.
Bruce is part of the Galactic Advisors now. I
But
the
they
Guardians of the
focus
Galaxy.
they focus on security and helping MSPs like myself uh, be secure and advise our clients how to be secure. And I've
Okay.
learned a ton of stuff that you probably already, well, I know that you already knew, but you've spent a lot of time
Yep.
dedicated to this. I can't focus all of my time on these things, so I have to have uh, somebody who is you advising me on
Yep.
these things.
Yeah, we could arrange
And
that.
We can arrange that. And one of the things that he brought up, which was funny, it was just kind of brought up like we knew that you should be doing this, is the tabletop exercises. And I'm like, Dungeons and Dragons? We're going to play Dungeons, and it more or less is, as you said, Dungeons and Dragons for executives. We're going to sit down and we're going to toss out scenarios of how would we respond from an IT standpoint. Roll the dice. If it's a 9,
ooh, 16.
16. Oh, your UPS just blew up.
You failed your saving throw. Battery died.
But I mean, it's definitely I feel like a worthy exercise. And so to explain what it is, so you get your executives in the room. There's the dice. You get your executives in the room who are, and we rolled
house rules. If it falls off the table, it doesn't count.
Yep, doesn't count.
Sorry, that was another new feature of the Mac OS and iOS I was playing with. You can use your phone camera for conferencing.
Oh yeah, that was pretty cool. I was like, how'd
cool.
he do that? But now I know. Very
know.
cool. I'll have to give that one a try.
Fun.
So get your executives together, not the ones who don't make who are not tied into any of the action, like there you go. Like your financial people specific ones might be involved, because if there is a ransomware, then they would be involved in the ransomware department. So getting all your action people together, plan on a 1 to 4 hour meeting, going over scenarios of things that could go wrong and how you guys are going to handle them. And the point is not to point fingers at people not having done their job in one way or another, coming up with all these redundancies. It is about finding solutions for your company and blocking as many holes as you possibly can. You can't account for every single scenario, and money is also finite. So like, okay, well, Peter, I need an entire new core system, and I need switches and buildings and people all sitting here right beside this building operating in warm. And if anything happens to the first building, we're going to switch over to the second building. Obviously.
Great. Just that's fine. We've got that, and it'll be costing you $1 billion.
Yeah. But what happens if your firewall goes out? What happens if your switch goes out? What happens if your UPS goes out?
Yeah. No, I've been a part of a number of tabletop exercises and also conducted them. Also, I play role-playing games a lot, like Dungeons and Dragons, and it really is. That's all it is, really. You're asking like, well, how would you respond to this? Well, we have this. Okay, great. But you've identified that you have this single point of failure named Steve, and he's on vacation. Now what do you do? Oh, we call him. He's backpacking in Colorado and has no cell service. Now what do you do? And that's when, like the frantic glances are made around the table, and they're like, yeah, okay, so this is something you need to think about. And then they think about it for a second, and then they walk away and never think about it again.
Yeah. I remember, Peter, you told me that if Steve were hiking in Colorado just like he is right now, we wouldn't be able to reach him.
And you're right, we can't reach him. And
it's really bad, Peter. What are we going to do?
Well, I can tell you what you're not going to do is listen to me next time this happens either. So we'll just go ahead and limp along.
Right. Let's move along then. All right. So that's all the technical things that I really came up with.
Well, I'll give a quick running update. I have decided that I am trying to my my running weekly goals. I'm trying to figure out exactly what I want to do to maintain. And I think I might have been a little overzealous, because what I did was I picked out essentially like the last couple of weeks out of Mark Cucuzzella's marathon plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I'll just alternate between these 2 weeks. And really what they are is like, it's the last 2 weeks before the taper. So you're at like peak marathon
Oh
training.
yeah, yeah.
So I think I might dial it back just a hair, right? So because what I'm at like is Mondays would be 8-minute intervals, Tuesdays a recovery half-hour run and some strength training or some cross training. Tuesdays 70-minute aerobic run, which is decent, not too intense, but zone
Mm-hmm.
3 training or so. Thursdays another half-hour recovery jog and some strength training. Then Fridays would be today, be like an hour-long jog, so easy.
Mm-hmm.
And then tomorrow would be like a 2-hour long run. And then
Mm-hmm.
that would be like my routine every single week.
Mm-hmm.
It's Now that I think about it, I put it down, it's actually not that bad, because it's not really all that different from doing 10K or an hour every other day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try to keep with this just for a week and see how it goes. So that means today I need to do just a jog for about an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'm gonna go up and visit my folks. And tomorrow morning, before I go to a friend's birthday party, I'm gonna go and do a 2-hour long run out in the woods of Vermont.
Cool.
So that's my plan. So that's my fitness update.
Fitness update. Very good.
Yep. Yep.
So I do have a book that I'm reading right now.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading right now. So Mike Michalowicz, pumpkin plan guy, that that guy,
I
toilet
do
paper.
know the
Okay.
pumpkin plan guy, the toilet paper entrepreneur, and the pumpkin plan. Yes.
Yep. So Mike Michalowicz has a new book called, it's not precisely new. It's new, and now there's the new and revised version, which is that one's new, but it's called Clockwork. And um it's not, when you hear the title of it, it's like getting your company to run like clockwork. I mean, that's the premise of it.
Hmm.
But the real premise of it is, Michael Gerber, E-Myth.
Yep.
That is, he talks about working on your business, not working in your business, and
Processes,
processes,
metrics.
building a process. So what Mike Michalowicz is saying, he's saying that there's 3 steps in a company evolution. Step 1 is Michael Gerber, E-Myth. You have the entrepreneurial seizure, you start your company, you start building these processes, and then it grows. And then step 3 is traction, EOS. Um,
Hmm.
Gino Wickman talks about how you have your team of 20 plus people, of executives, and how are you getting them all to work together and build this entrepreneurial operating system. Well, I like track, and there's scaling up with Harnish.
Yep.
And so, I mean, there's nothing, I don't have anything against scaling up. It's just got to choose one way. It's either Mac or Windows. I mean, pick your AWS or Google, whichever one you want.
Hmm.
So I like traction. Well, for me, traction, my company's not big enough for traction. So my managers, quote unquote managers, are also the employee who is doing the work for that department. So it traction is really working when you're having meetings from a top down standpoint. Your
Hmm.
executives, you're meeting with the marketing executive is then meeting with their team and working through these things. And so you're not deciding at the C level which color is the marketing team choosing for the postcard.
Right.
you know
A little
but
beneath them.
my company is not that big, so
Hmm.
we got 10 people. Well, we're not enough executives. So what Mike Michalowicz has determined. He's like, there's a step 2 in this process.
Okay.
There's this middle step getting you from your $1 million company to your 10, 20, 200, $300 million company that's running on traction. And what I'm going to do is walk you through the intentional steps of how you get to that traction size company. And
Okay.
I agree with that in concept. So I'm going through the book right now. I'm just listening to the whole audiobook part of it, get the gist of it, and then I'm going to start working through the workbook side of it, and going through the intentional steps, kind of like I do with traction.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, I mean, this doesn't change how I had plans for my company, but it's
Mm-hmm.
going to give me some intentional steps to get me through the medium time where it's like,
Yep.
it's I don't know what to do to get to the step where I've got 20 executives in a room.
Yep. Yeah.
Except
Well,
work harder.
yeah. There you go. Work harder. No, you're done. That's it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what he wants you to do, he says, his litmus test is, you can leave your company for 4 weeks. The company will continue to function and, in fact, grow without you. That's your litmus test.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I am trying to find a place to book for a vacation in Costa Rica this winter.
Can I come too?
If you want to go surfing. So I am
Yeah.
looking for places with 2 bedrooms.
Uh-huh.
And I'm trying to find a place that is both close to or in the mountains and also relatively close to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to prioritize, I think I would probably choose the mountains over the beach, just because I plan to spend more time running in the mountains
Mm-hmm.
than surfing or wading in the water and stuff. But if we need to have another offsite to discuss, mergers and acquisitions and security services and stuff,
Yeah.
we might need to realign our calendars for that. So
Yes. Yeah. Costa Rica is in our list. Um, I could not go without my wife.
that's why I'm looking for 2 bedrooms.
Yeah. 2 bedrooms, internet, and
Wi-Fi is a must. Yes.
mm-hmm,
See, I'm not planning to stop my business for a month. I am planning on relocating
mm-hmm,
for a month or
for a
so.
month.
And yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm looking at some decent things and decent places. And I just, it's kind of hard. It's sight unseen. And most of these places up here that I've booked Airbnbs in the States, it's like, oh, you can cancel up to like a day before. And down
Mm-hmm.
in Costa Rica, they're all like, you can cancel within 48 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a little more of a commitment, and I don't want to like start booking something and then, oh, I've got 2 days just to cancel it and stuff. So I'm really looking at, that, the cost of the flight, and, probably need to rent a car. So, and then, but other than that, like the rental of the places down there, there's some prices like it's less than it costs to rent a place up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why wouldn't I
Mm-hmm.
spend the dead of winter in Costa Rica? Sounds good to
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, I agree. So, friend of mine, a friend of ours, uh, one of the places in her bucket list is the Seychelles.
Okay.
And I had never heard of the Seychelles until they brought it up and invited us to go. You had heard of it?
I have.
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
never been, but I've heard
Never
of them.
been. So we're going in February, and it's we're only going for 12 days.
Okay.
Um, but like I said, the cost of the or an Airbnb or a Verbo, we're actually staying at a Verbo. It's like a
What's
hundred.
that?
Vacation, VRBO, vacation rental. I don't know what the BO stands for.
Don't know that one.
Bad odor, but it can't
That's
be that.
first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, but no, yeah, VRBO, vacation rental. Like I said, I don't remember what the other part of the acronym is, but they're like a bed and breakfast, but there's no
Got it.
breakfast. You're
Got it.
you're
So
renting
it's
the
like a
whole thing.
bed.
Yeah, it's like a bed. But it was like between $118 to $130 a night
Mm-hmm.
for 3-bedroom with a
Yep.
pool, all
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and some of these Costa Rican places I'm looking at, looking at maybe $3,000 for a decent place, like for the month. Some
Mm-hmm.
of them have swimming pools and stuff. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
Yeah.
hoping this weekend to make my decision and actually have a place to picked out to go down there. So,
Nice.
and then I
You'll
was
have to
looking
let
at
me.
the trips, like the flights and the return trips and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's a 26-hour return trip." I'm like, no, I want to come home on the same day. Thank you. I do not want to spend 18 hours in the Panama City airport.
Yeah.
So,
No, thank you.
no,
Yeah.
thank you.
So we're in January. We are going to Portland, Oregon. Not nearly as nice as Costa Rica, or
But
it's
you
for a
might be
weekend.
able to get together and have coffee with or beer with listener of the show, Scott Wilsey.
Well, yeah. I hadn't thought about that. Is he close to Portland?
Yeah, like
Okay.
yeah, he says he lives in Portland. Even
Oh,
it's
okay.
not technically in Portland. He doesn't say he lives in Portland. I say he lives in Portland, but he's very close to Portland.
Well, then yes, we must have a brew of some kind.
A brew, friends with brews. All right, is that it? Are we good?
I think we are good.
I think we're good. Tech heavy, business happy episode, but that's okay because that was like
Hmm.
part of the original intention of this. So 180 episodes later, it's about time we get back to our roots.
Back to business.
Well, since you open it up, why don't I close us down?
Yes, sir.
If you want to leave us feedback or want us to discuss a particular topic, you can drop us a line. You can do that at www.blurringthelinespodcast.com. If you want to find Adam, it's really easy. He's at Sublime Comp on. We didn't even talk about Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
Are
The
you
twit is
still
tweeting.
are you still on Twitter at Sublime Comp?
I guess technically I am. I
Yeah,
haven't been
even
kicked off.
yeah. Well, Twitter's got a new owner. Adam is still on Twitter at Sublime Comp. I am still on Twitter at Nikolaidis. You can find Adam at sublimecomp.com. That's his website, and also at rrlavenderfarm.com. That's his other website. You can find my consulting business at paradigmcc.com, yogawithpeter.com. You can also find me at friendswithbrews.com. That's BREWS, featuring a new and improved search engine, which is great. It works everywhere, thanks to listener of the show and webmaster Scott Wilsey, except on my Macintosh running the Microsoft Edge browser, which is great. But if you go there and say Safari on a Mac and you search for Omegang, you will find the Three Philosophers brews that I've drunk from there on the show. So there you go.
Yeah.
And on that note, I think it's time for me to go for a run, but not before I push the big red button.